Hey, y'all. So I think I'm live. So today we are talking about how to enjoy holiday food and still stay on track towards your fitness goals. So first things first, you need to determine whether or not, like, what your priorities are in the moment. Like, it's the holidays, there's a lot of good food. The holidays are temporary. People normally like to be with family and just relax and not worry about food so much. But there can be problem with that and going from one extreme to the other of, like, you've been on track with your calories or food and eating healthy in your goals, but then the holidays come around and a lot of people just let it all go to crap and they just eat like a pig, and their goals just go to crap essentially. So we don't want that, but we also don't want you to feel so restricted that you just have all of this stress and you feel like you can't eat these foods that are temporary, like your grandmother making something that's only a seasonal thing during Thanksgiving or Christmas, something like that. So we don't want that either. So this is a more balanced approach. Now, I still really emphasize that you assess what your priorities are during this holiday season. One, are you okay with missing out on certain foods, like trigger foods that normally you might overeat? For example, like, say you love pumpkin pie and normally when you eat it you like eat the whole pie or something like that. So you need to assess, are you okay with having a more balanced approach in terms of what you eat, the foods that you eat, but being okay with your progress not being as fast? Or are you okay with missing out on some of the foods that you really enjoy, but still making progress, like optimal progress towards your goal? So that's what you should assess first. Now, we're going to talk about a more balanced approach because, in general, that's what I recommend in life in general. And if you're looking for long-term sustainability, which actually is one of the it's the most important factor when it comes to you not only reaching your goals but keeping your goals. And that should apply to the holidays as well. So these tips and tricks for enjoying, the holiday food and still staying on track towards your fitness goals, these are what these tips are going to outline. So first, assess what your priorities are. From there, if your priority is more so a more flexible, like eating some of the unhealthy foods, but still attaining your fitness goals, then you should follow these steps. So the first step, and I have about, let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 10 steps for you to help optimize your progress during the holiday season. So tip number one is, don't starve yourself during the week. So Thanksgiving is in a few days. And I used to do this. I know a lot of people do this as well, is they will go in like extreme diets leading up to a specific holiday so that they look their best for their family, and so that come the day of, you feel like you have full freedom to eat as much as you want and eat whatever you want. That is what I used to do. I don't recommend that. One, it's not a sustainable approach. It's also an unhealthy approach. And then also, when you eat like that, you end up gaining a lot of weight. So instead, don't starve yourself during the week. When you starve yourself, that exponentially spikes your cravings and your hunger levels to an unnatural state. Unnatural meaning, your body, you crave more food than your body has the ability to burn. And so when you are faced with this food, like pumpkin pie, for example, you end up eating a ton. So if instead you just eat normally, like, and by normally I mean like normal amounts of food leading up to the holiday, and especially the day of, which I highly recommend, you're not going to have these extreme cravings, and you can better control how much food you eat of the unhealthy food. Now I'm putting quotations around unhealthy food because, you know, batting harmful ingredients aside, that's a totally different subject. But in terms of like, sweets and fatty foods, there really aren't unhealthy foods per se. I'm just using that, just because people generally understand what people are talking about when they say unhealthy food. They think of like, ice cream, donuts, things like that. I'm not saying they're bad, but that's what I mean by unhealthy food. Um, so not starving yourself, especially the day of, this will help a lot as well. So, if you normally celebrate Thanksgiving around like lunchtime, like my family does, we normally start between, like 12 and 2, then you typically only have one meal before that, which is breakfast. Or if you have celebrate Thanksgiving in the evening, like most people do, like around 5-ish, whatever, then you have 2 normal meals before that, breakfast and lunch. So don't skip those meals. Eat them. I highly encourage you to eat them. If you starve yourself that day, you will go to extremes and overeat during the actual Thanksgiving meal. Tip number 2 is make sure that you're getting enough protein at each of those meals the day of. And, of course, leading up to the holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever. So if you get at least 1 to 2 palm sizes, so here's a palm, so 1 to 2 palm sizes. Generally for women, they say, 1 palm, for men, 2 palms, but whatever you feel satisfied with, honestly. 1 to 2 palm sizes at every meal leading up to the cheat meal, the holiday cheat meal. What that'll do is it'll help to make you feel a couple things. It'll help to make you feel more satiated. So again, that'll help with you not overeating during the cheat meal. Actually, let me make sure. I'm going to make sure I record this real quick. Awesome. Oops. Okay, where was I? Yes, so eating protein at each meal leading up to the holiday cheat meal will help with a couple things. It'll help you to feel more satiated between meals, which will help prevent you from overeating during the cheat meal. And then it'll also help to preserve more muscle mass. This is really important if you're in a caloric deficit, meaning you're in a diet to lose weight. Getting sufficient protein will help to negate any muscle loss. And then the other thing that it will help to do, I'm going off the top of my head. I just thought of it just a moment ago. Let me try to remember it. Dang, I don't remember. Anyway, this has been happening to me a lot lately. So yeah, get enough protein. And then the other tip is to get 1 to 2 fistfuls of vegetables for each meal, leading up to the holiday, and then of course the day of. So this is a fist, 1 to 2 fistfuls. So 1, 2. What that'll also do is, because vegetables are high in water content and fiber content, but very low in calories, that will also help to make you feel more satiated and full, so that come the cheat meal, the holiday meal, you're basically not ravenous, and you don't go to extremes again of eating more than you actually need or actually truly desire. So it'll help with that as well. Another recommendation is to drink lots of water before and during the cheat meal. So again, if you celebrate Thanksgiving at lunch or dinner, make sure you're getting plenty of water leading up to that meal. That'll help you to feel more satiated. It'll help you feel less bloated. Um, it'll also help with your energy levels. I know a lot of people, like after they eat Thanksgiving meals, they will feel very sluggish and tired. Yes, part of that's due to the tryptophan in the turkey, but being dehydrated can also lend to your fatigue substantially, actually. Um, the other tip is to, so of course, leading up to the cheat meal, the holiday meal, and during the holiday meal, you should eat your food in a particular order. And that order is proteins and fats first, then carbs and sweets last, particularly sweets very, very last. Now, that'll do a couple things. So, leading up to the holiday meal, eating your food in that order helps to control your blood glucose levels. So it prevents a higher spike. When you have a very high spike in your blood glucose levels, it basically tells your body, like, there's this huge spike. We can't do anything with this blood glucose, so let's store it as fat. What it also can do is it can also lead to energy crashes. And there have been tons of studies that when you eat food in this order, it prevents that really high blood glucose spike and it prevents that energy crash after that meal. And so when you have those energy crashes, it also, and those really high blood glucose spikes, it also makes you feel hungrier faster. So even though you only ate like maybe an hour or two ago, you're suddenly hungry again. And again, that is due to the really high blood glucose spike. So if you eat your food in this order, proteins, fats, carbs, and then sweets last, it'll help to prevent all of those things. So you'll have less cravings, you'll have more energy, and less fat storage potential. So that's really, really helpful. So I recommend that for the meals leading up to your cheat meal, holiday meal, and the actual holiday meal. So yes, eat your turkey and ham first. Then your stuffing, and then your pumpkin pie. That's how you should eat your food, in that order. Another tip is to eat all of your meals slowly, slowly, slowly. That means, not inhaling your food and only chewing it once or twice and then swallowing it. I know some people who do that. And I'm always telling them to slow down. So you don't want to do that. For two reasons. When you inhale your food like that, it takes a longer time for your brain to figure out that your stomach is full. So you end up overeating. And the other thing that it does is, this is seasonal holiday food. If you are inhaling your food and not enjoying it, then, you're going to want to eat more of that food so that you get more time to enjoy it. I don't know if that makes sense. So like if you're like inhaling your food and you're like, this is my favorite food, but like you're eating it super, super fast and say you finish it in 2 minutes because you're just inhaling it, then a lot of times when people do that, they're like, oh, like I feel like I've had hardly any of this food, even though they've eaten a ton, but it's because they ate so fast that they feel like, oh, they need more time with that food. So in essence, slow down, savor your food. And what that'll do is it'll help to tell your brain at the appropriate time when you actually are satisfied, and it'll prevent you from overeating. The other tip is to stop eating once you are satisfied. Now, you can't do that if you're not eating your food slowly. So you first should eat your food slowly. And then if you practice this, you'll notice this. When you start eating more slowly and savoring your food, you don't feel this urgent need to overeat. because you have already had the time with your food because and the ability to savor it. Um, so and also like so obviously like when you eat past being satisfied, like you eat until you're stuffed, you're obviously overeating, and that's going to lead to fat gain, and we don't want that. Another recommendation is so after eat your Thanksgiving meal, and you had your pumpkin pie and all that, and it was amazing. Go on a short little walk with your family, like around the block. Like, normally people visit after, or well, while they are eating, and then after they eat, they visit anyway. And I know a lot of people in general, after Thanksgiving meals, they don't want to like just sit around because they know they're going to fall asleep. So just go on a very brief walk. It doesn't necessarily have to be a walk. It could be any sort of physical activity. I know some people like to play like tag football or something like that. So it could be any physical activity, movement, with your family. Just like 5 to 10 minutes. So it doesn't have to, take up your whole day or anything like that. And it's not meant to be a form of exercise. So it should be like a casual walk, casual activity, or whatever you personally prefer. But it should not be looked at as exercise that you have to do after every meal. And so what this will do is a couple of things. So one, this will also help with your blood glucose levels after you eat a meal. The exact same thing that I was mentioning earlier about eating your food in a particular order and how that affects your blood glucose levels. It'll help to manage that better. So it'll help bring your blood glucose levels back to baseline faster, and preventing that really high spike. And it'll also prevent an energy crash afterwards as well. So, it'll also help to like, if you don't particularly want to take a nap on Thanksgiving and just want to spend more time with family, it'll help with that as well. Not saying you can't take a nap, but I'm saying that because it'll help prevent the energy crash, it can help, prevent that from happening. Which also, by the way, because it helps to manage your blood glucose levels more evenly, it also prevents fat gain as well, or minimizing any potential fat gain. The only way that you're going to gain fat is if you're overeating on your calories. But these tips and tricks certainly do help with managing your blood glucose levels, which in turn help to mitigate any fat gain. The final recommendation is, so, whatever time you end up celebrating Thanksgiving, some people may get started late, but in general, you should finish all of your meals before sunset. Now, I know it's it's winter. No, it's not winter. It's fall season, so the days are getting shorter in terms of daylight. Here in Texas, the sun sets around like 5:45, I think. So that's pretty early. And I know some people don't get started with their Thanksgiving until, evening. So as much as you can control, finish your last meal by sunset. For example, my family, we personally start our Thanksgiving between 12 and 2, and it lasts the whole day. So, me following this rule, I can, eat Thanksgiving lunch and, dinner. And then my cap is probably like stop eating around like, 6 o'clock. So as much as you can control it, finish your last meal by sunset. Of course, if you get started, that just simply means, just have that one meal and then stop after that. So that covers all of my tips. So all of these tips will be really helpful with having a flexible approach to holiday food. And why that is important is, again, like, it depends on your goals. So if you were a professional bodybuilder and you had a competition coming up in like, the middle of December, then yeah, you probably should be really strict about your calories and the types of foods that you eat. So it depends on your goals and your priorities, but in general, for most people, a flexible approach during the holidays is the best bet. It'll help ensure that you are, not having any stress and more so emphasizing enjoying time with the family versus worrying about what foods you can and can't eat. It gives you more flexibility on the types of foods that you can eat because it is a temporary season. And then, so yeah, let's see, I was going to say another thing. Oh, so another tip that I have is treat the holidays like, when it comes to holiday food, treat it like just a, one or two meals. Like, so a lot of people feel like the holidays technically start at Halloween and they go until New Year's. That's like 3 months, 2 months, 2.5 months. So if you're eating like, just eating all kinds of holiday food during that entire time, then no, that is not a balanced approach. And, you're probably not going to look your best and you're not going to reach your goals. So instead of having that approach, rather instead, if it's Halloween, okay, have some of the Halloween candy. If it's Thanksgiving, have one or two Thanksgiving meals during that day. And maybe like one meal, like, the day after, something like that, of the, unhealthy foods. Same thing with Christmas, like just treat just have like the treats the day of on Christmas Day rather than like every single day. And I'm not saying you have to follow that exactly, but just as general recommendations. So don't eat like crap every single day. Just enjoy the foods, but enjoy it in moderation. And that'll ensure that you have some food freedom and you're spending more time with family without stress, while also still being able to reach your fitness goals. So we have Clayburn on. By the way, if anybody's watching on Facebook, if you have any questions, just type it in the comments. Hey Clayburn, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me?
Sorry, he was breaking up.
I'm pretty good. Just got out of work.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I joined in a little bit later, but did you have any questions on what I covered of what you caught? I can't hear you if you're talking. Let's see. Yeah, Clayburn, you're muted.
That all seems pretty clear.
Great, awesome. Cool. So just replying on Facebook real quick. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, just... Okay, Peter says he's going to listen while he works out. Awesome. Sounds good. Okay. Yeah, that covers everything. So if you guys have any questions, just let me know. And happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy time with your family and enjoy the seasonal food. And I will see you guys next week. Bye, Clayburn. Oh, I forgot. So for joining the Zoom call, you win a prize. So let's see, do you like Starbucks or Amazon?
Amazon.
Amazon? Okay. I'll send you a gift card to Amazon for joining.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, I will talk to you soon. Bye.
All right, see you.